Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode.
Thanks for joining us again on the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. It's good to be back.
On your own podcast?
Yeah. I was out last week when Thomas recorded, but we had special guests Aaron and Jocelyn Freeman, authors of The Argument Hangover. So I hope you enjoyed that episode with those guests as I was snuggling our fourth child in the hospital. But
yeah, shout out to them. Thanks so much again for joining us. It was a pleasure to have the two of you on, and we really appreciated you filling the gap for Julie so she could do that evening.
Yeah, we like to go hold our baby. He's 3 months old now currently, as you're listening to this podcast, and still in the NICU, but getting bigger and stronger every day. He was born at 1 pound, 13 ounces, and he's about 6 pounds, 5 ounces, I think was the last weigh in. So getting to be a big boy. So that was last week with the Freemans. And then the week before that, Thomas and I talked about jealousy in marriage. And so we wanted to circle back around to that because we said jealousy may be driven by low self-esteem. And so that's what we wanted to talk about. But before that, I noticed that October is coming up. And
already?
I know. So we have a couple more weeks in September now, but October has 5 Mondays. And we release episodes every week on Monday. And so with the 5 weeks, it was like, we should do a 5-week series.
A mini series.
Yeah. And so we were putting our heads together and just looking at some topics we wanted to talk about, which maybe might be around the lack of something in your relationship. So, for example, lack of attention, lack of appreciation, or lack of trust, sex, or communication. But we want you guys to chime in on that. What is lacking in your relationship? What's lacking in your marriage that you want us to add to that October series? So reach out to us on social media at Marriage Puzzle on Facebook or Instagram. We're the ones running those accounts. If we post, our episodes weekly, but we always read in our DMs and messages, or you can contact us through our website. But yeah, that's coming up in October. We're excited about tackling what's lacking in your relationship to help you have a more fulfilled marriage. But back to... Yeah,
sorry, I just wanted to add in something on that real quick.
He was raising his hand like, can I talk? I'm not used to the co-host again. We're just running our own episode.
We've probably all heard the statements about, how many words men speak per day versus women speak per day.
Come on.
And it's like, got to raise my hand sometimes to get my words in.
What were you going to add? Sorry.
I was just going to say, like just tagging on to you saying we're the ones who actually read the messages and we're always coming up with the content for the episodes, and we base that off of what's either happening in our relationship or around us that we're seeing, basically just kind of fresh in our lives. And so we're kind of basing it off of a one, maybe 2-dimensional thing, but you guys are the ones listening. So let us know if there's something that you specifically want to hear about. We would love to do the research on that and talk about it for you and try and help you out. But we don't know unless you reach out to us. Right. We're just doing what we're doing and hoping that it hits home. So let us know. We want to make sure we're hitting the right things for you.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I was saying. We're not posting every day like we used to just because of our family situation, but we're still active every day on our social accounts. And so we love those, private messages and things like that. And that's why, like Thomas said, it's just relevant topics of what we're dealing with or what we're hearing about in our coaching sessions with other couples. And so that's why it was kind of like part 2 of that, the jealousy in marriage today, to go back to the low self-esteem and how that could be affecting our marriages and relationships.
Yeah, and so we wanted to kick it off with the structure of this episode, I should say, is probably going to be like, we're going to give you some signs of low self-esteem that may point to one of you in your relationship having low self-esteem. And then we always want to try to give something practical that will help you work through whatever we're talking about. And so we'll talk about that towards the bottom half of the episode. So we're going to kick it off with some signs of low self-esteem. And this can be in either spouse. It's not specifically related to husband or wife. It can go either way in any relationship. And I'm sure that it can change with seasons. So be aware of that just because one of you doesn't have this right now, it could switch later on after a big major life event. So the first one is lack of confidence or low self-acceptance. Basically just constant like negative thoughts about yourself, negative comments about yourself or themselves, depending on who it might be in your relationship. But yeah, just not having that confidence or feeling like you're good enough.
Another sign of low self-esteem would be if you're comparing yourself with others, or we've talked about on a previous episode, comparing your marriage to someone else's relationship. And so that is so relevant now with social media, like we were talking about, because there's the highlight reel, and even the word reel, REEL, is, reels are always there with Instagram and Facebook, and they're definitely the highlights. They're not making, a bad day real.
Right.
And so, it'd lead to low self-esteem if you're just constantly comparing yourself to other people. And that could even be our relationship, Thomas and I. And I think because we put ourselves out there on this podcast, and hopefully our highlight reel, REEL, of life is actually highlighting real, REAL, topics for you. And so just like you said earlier, we try to talk about what we're experiencing, what we're learning in our marriage, and what we've walked through. But don't put us on a pedestal where then you just have this low self-esteem. We just like to come alongside couples, kind of that peer and coach, and say, we've been there and let us help you through it.
Yeah. And this, comparing your marriage to someone else's marriage can also include, there's probably a percentage of our listeners out there that could deal with it this way, could also include comparing oneself to a spouse's ex-spouse. Like, so if you have one of you has been involved in a previous marriage, just always trying to kind of live up to that other person, that you weren't around that marriage. So I'm sure there's some aspects of that as well. So just be cautious of that. This could also come in ways of having trouble expressing your thoughts or feelings, or a lack of assertiveness in communication. And that last one, the lack of assertiveness in communication, is something we talk about in our marriage coaching with all of our clients. Once we have an assessment done by them or for them, then we see what each of their levels of assertiveness is, and that comes from kind of their personality. It can be worked on. You can grow to become more assertive in your relationship. And unfortunately, the word assertiveness can kind of get a bad rep sometimes. And it can make it seem like you're just trying to kind of take control of a situation or of your spouse. And that's not necessarily the case. Assertiveness is really just the ability to express your thoughts and feelings and desires to your spouse. And if you have trouble doing that, then you may have some low self-esteem kind of hiding behind that.
Yeah, another sign of low self-esteem for you or your spouse is not enough energy in your relationship. So maybe you're not putting enough effort into a relationship because you feel like it doesn't matter anyway.
Right.
And unfortunately, just this week, I've heard of 2 couples that are separated or divorced because what we would assume is, if there's not this huge underlying reason as to why this big fallout, it could be from not enough effort or energy into the relationship. Maybe when even young kids are around, and then kids get to an older age and even move out of the house, and then you look at each other and you're like, who are you? I don't want to be with you. I'm bored or whatever. And so you have to kind of have that energy and effort and be intentional about pursuing each other, and build that self-esteem, so that you don't have that fallout.
Yeah.
Even in this family season that we're in with, we have 4 young kids, and we've got lots of driving and different activities, and one of that being a baby in the NICU. We're still trying to be really intentional about going out on a date and getting a sitter or grandparent to come over so we can keep pouring into our relationship. And we're tired.
Mm-hmm.
We're very tired. And so that one is on the list because I don't want to lose that energy or that effort. And then that, leads to that low self-esteem of just, why bother?
Well, and your spouse should be energizing to be around. And let me rephrase that in a different way. You should be energized when you're around your spouse. You should have that spark when you see them. You should, desire the time with them, desire that conversation with them, desire, and I don't even want to say that approval from them, because that kind of plays into this low self-esteem thing. And we'll talk about that more in a minute, but just that desire to be around them. And if you ever get the feeling like it's not desire, you're not, how do I say that? That it's not, you don't have the desire to be around them, or you're not excited around them, then that just lets you know that's a red flag, that you need to work harder on that. You need to be intentional about that so that you can build that spark back up again. Like you said, it's hard for us right now to make those dates happen, but we're still making it a priority, just to make sure we maintain that spark. Because when we're out of this season, that's when it's going to be gone if we don't work on it now.
Well, another thing on our list, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but just to piggyback off that, is lack of fun and intimacy. Mm-hmm. So I think that's like just keeping that. But like I said, we could be a really boring, tired couple right now, and it would be understandable. And a lot of people have said that, like, give yourself grace in this season. But this is a long season for us. And so, yeah, I would say, the lack of fun and intimacy, not enough energy, not enough effort, all plays into this.
Yeah. And another thing that it could rise up as is being easily offended, and drama around hurt feelings, or having just exhausting arguments, either arguments that are just really long and drawn out and wordy, which, again, if you're having those arguments, go back and listen to last week's episode about the argument hangover, with the Freemans, and go get their book that's listed on our website, because that will really help you out about arguments, and how to kind of just change your whole conflict resolution mindset. That's a little rabbit trail there. Sorry for that. But if you're having those exhausting arguments, they could either just be long and drawn out, or they could be constantly recurring. It could be the same argument that's constantly coming up. And for any of you that have kids, you know that if they keep asking you the same thing over and over again, how like wearing on you that can be. Like, it's that same kind of scenario. Like, why?
I was just going to say that.
Why?
The why questions.
Like, it can wear on you. And so if you're having the same argument with your spouse over and over, if it's a recurring thing that's happening, then that's going to become exhausting. Even if it's short-lived, it's going to be exhausting and get exhausting. So if there's that drama around, that could be stemming from low self-esteem as well.
Yeah, and the last thing on the list, I know it's a long list, but this shows how much low self-esteem could be in your relationship, is codependency, which is too dependent on others since you're always looking for validation. Mm-hmm. So listen to that list and see if that's you or your spouse, because we want to give you 4 ways that we can help you through that in this episode.
Yeah, and I just want to say this is a tricky one, because if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, I really feel like this is my spouse, you can't really, as much as I want you to send it to them to listen to the episode, I don't want you to just send this to them and be like, this is you, we need to fix this. That's not what this is about. So what you need to do is you need to learn from some of the ways that we're going to help you through this, some of the ways we're going to give you to help yourself through this, so that you can help them through this without pointing out those flaws and like kind of digging your digging out those wounds that they already have in themselves. You don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be adding salt to the wound. That's the good analogy there.
I just said 4 ways to help, and I think we have 5.
Oh.
We have a long list today. Hopefully it's good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff. And if it's not, then tell us what you want us to talk about in October so we can be helpful. But so 5 ways or however many we come up with here on the spot to help through low self-esteem. The first one is limit the criticism. Say kind things either about yourself or to your spouse, and target the areas they find difficult to be proud of or confident of. And this is something that I actually struggled with this week. I had a work project that I had maybe 4 or 5 things that I was coming down to the same deadline. And one of them I didn't meet one of the deadlines or one of the projects. I cried. I was really down on myself. And Thomas just came alongside me, and instead of like even affirming that I failed or anything, and he didn't play into my low self-esteem. Yeah. And I needed a hug and comforting, but he didn't let me stay in the low self-esteem. Instead, he started pointing out the other 4 things that I did accomplish. Mm-hmm. So, if it was, just one thing, he's just always positive about sometimes too optimistic for me. I'm like,
that's okay. Sometimes you're too pessimistic for me, so we balance each other out.
But it was so helpful in that situation because I was the one with low self-esteem in that moment and was really, really hard on myself. And he just affirmed me and, like I said, gave examples of the other good things that I did accomplish and do. And that was just really special, really nice. Thank you.
That's good because I felt like I kind of came down on you about it a little bit. I think I approached it more of like a stop it. Like, this is ridiculous and here's why. Not, it wasn't a lovey-dovey conversation. It was an affirming conversation, but it was direct and firm about it's ridiculous that you feel this way because you've done so many other good things and you're letting this one little thing, one little piece drag you down. And so you have to be the one to gauge your spouse as to how are they going to handle this? And does your spouse just need the, hugs and cuddles to get them through it? Or do they need that firm, direct kind of like shake them out of it and say like, hey, wake up here, look at what you've accomplished and look what you've done today. And I felt like in that specific incident, it was the latter. So,
well, another way to help, and I don't know how many we have now, but we wrote to ask for their opinion and maybe even about the responsibilities that they have around the house or in your routine so that, they can own and be proud of something when they complete it. And I think that that's just kind of tied into what happened this week. That was, a work situation that you could point out the good things that I did, but what if it was just one failure at work and I didn't have good things to bring to the table? That's where you can engage in conversation and ask their opinion about the responsibilities that they have in your family. And then, okay, what could you not necessarily take on, but do so that you can feel accomplished and celebrate and be proud of, another area that you could be thriving in if they have low self-esteem in another area.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly unpack this one a little bit more because there's asking their opinion and talking about their responsibilities are kind of the same, but they're also very different. I think asking their opinion can be a lot more like, if they're just not confident in expressing themselves, that lower assertiveness type of thing, asking their opinion can help them to kind of like bait them into being more confident. Like, hey, what do you think? And it can be like as simple as, what paint color should we choose for the house? This gray or this gray? Like, get their opinion. Then if you're cool with either one, you can go with it, and that incrementally builds their confidence. So there's the opinion part, which can also work with the responsibilities. You can talk about the responsibilities and get their opinions, but the responsibilities that they buy into and they say, no, I think I can be the one to take over the yard work, or whatever. they can then be proud of accomplishing those things, which will then incrementally build their self-confidence up, their self-esteem up every time. So just a little bit of unpacking on those two things there. Did you have something else?
I was saying, and support them in that.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, when they pick that and do that, then support them in that, instead of just making them feel bad, even if it's something little. Just like, that's a great idea, let's do that. How can I support you in that this week to build their confidence and self-esteem?
And not even just in that, but support them in anything. We've given the example of when I lost my job and I came to you about becoming a financial coach, and before we even, I told you how much it was going to be for me to get certified or anything, you were just like, yes, do it. Like, you supported me from the get-go. Obviously, you need to be wise, of course, in certain things, but supporting them in their endeavors is going to be huge, especially if they extend that vulnerability to you of like, hey, I have this idea. If you shut it down, man, that is going to crush them.
Well, that's why it was easy to support you in that, because you were so passionate about it, and you did open up about how you felt and how you needed me to kind of trust you through that leap of faith. And so, yeah, I could have shut that down and we would have had a different future right now.
Right.
But supporting you in that, now you get to support so many other people, and that makes me excited too.
And another way, we talked about this could show up as a lack of intimacy in your relationship. So you can kind of combat that by showing your spouse how much you enjoy being intimate with them. You can do that by being the one to initiate sex, or just be straight up open with them about the fact that they make you happy in that area. And that can really help boost their self-confidence.
I think I've said this.
Self-esteem.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Or both.
Both. Yeah.
They're interchangeable. I think I've said in an episode when we specifically talk about sex and how, you can just do it to check it off the list and then be done, roll over and go to bed, or get on your phone and scroll or whatever. But yeah, it's like intimacy is so much more of that leading up to it and affirming your spouse going into that act of having sex, and then after. Or maybe even not during, when you're doing that date night and at dinner, and you just say those fun things. Like, I really enjoy being with you.
Yeah.
Like being physical with you. Like, and so it's just kind of like, oh, nice. Thanks for saying that. Instead of you just want me for my body, like you do want me because of how it makes you feel throughout the whole day.
Well, and if your spouse has issues with self-esteem and it's affecting your relationship in this way, keep in mind that immediately after you finish having sex is the start of leading up to the next time.
That's good.
And so if you just that, like what you said, roll over and get on your phones, sometimes that's just, we're tired, that's what we do, and I think that that's okay in some instances. But if you notice that your spouse is struggling with low self-esteem, you can't do that. You have to be still intimate with them immediately following, and then you have to keep building their confidence up until the next time. Even if it's a week away, which, we don't necessarily recommend, but if that's for what works for your routine, that's great. But you have to keep building on that all the way throughout. Very important. Last thing here, dig deep to the root issue of the low self-esteem. Low self-esteem doesn't just happen to happen. There's something deeper inside that's causing that to happen. And so if you have trust issues because of your own past, and you're the one with low self-esteem, or if you're the one with low self-esteem and you have trust issues because of your spouse's past, then that is a situation where we would actually suggest you look into marriage counseling. And we want to talk for a quick minute about the difference between marriage counseling and what we do as marriage coaches. And marriage counseling is going to be a situation where more often you're going to be able to go and dig out some of those root issues and heal some of those past wounds up, so that then you can move forward. So marriage counseling, oftentimes you're going to be looking backwards and healing up to the present. For marriage coaching, what we do is we start at the present and we work forward. We've talked about this in terms of, like, Michael Jordan had a basketball coach. His basketball coaches all throughout his career took him from where he was and moved him forward and got him better. They didn't look back at the past and, or anything like that and try and heal anything. They said, this is where you are now. This is where we're trying to get to. And so that's just kind of the difference there that we see between the two. But if you have a root issue that you're not able to address on your own, make sure you get some help. We've said it before that the average couple lives struggling with things in their marriage for like an average of 6 years before they reach out to get help from somebody. Don't wait that long. Don't wait that long.
Yeah, that's why we offer a free discovery call, because if you don't know if you should do counseling or coaching, you don't know what to pay for and sign up for, just jump on a free discovery call with us. It's a video chat, so you can meet us, we can meet you. And so if you want to private message us, maybe with the October series of what's lacking in your marriage, that could be, the start of a conversation. But if you want to go deeper, then book a free discovery call off our website, marriagepuzzle.com. It's a full, usually about 45 minutes, an hour with you, because we do an exercise to see what are your strengths right now, and what are some growth areas that we could help you through. So again, you can find us at Marriage Puzzle on social media, and again, marriagepuzzle.com for the website. And as always, we look forward to you joining us next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
Have a great week.